Hi there, welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show.
Where Belem asked the questions about the needs, and we asked it at three levels. If you'll remember, we asked, what do you need to be a better leader? What does your team need to do better? And what does the organization need? And interestingly, communication fell in the top three of all of those responses. But for the leader, interestingly, the number one answer was that they felt they needed to be better at communicating. Take that the next step, and the team felt, you'll appreciate this, both of you, Dr. Whelan, Dr. Perdue, but the number one, the highest item was that they felt their team needed psychological safety and then communication and then collaboration. But when you get to the organization, it's really interesting where this fell. The top item was really the capability and the skill within the organization. So now we're talking about just a general skill set, and some folks even said a basic skill set. And then the number two item was communication, and then efficiency. So I thought it was really interesting to take a look at those three things together to see how that fit and didn't fit when you're looking at the organization and you're looking at the team, and you're looking at the leader. What's needed along the pathway while that communication was there across the board, and to your point, the confidence of the leader, that had been lowered.
The one kind of data point that stuck out was that the organizational, I think from 2020 to 21 trended up, but the leader themselves, the competency trended down. And so, Dr. Wiater, when so my brain is working, right? I'm like, well, why was that, right? And so what I saw, or what you said was psychological safety was the top, I guess, issue for individuals and teams. And then, org, it went to capabilities and skills or the top issue. But it made me think about Maslow's hierarchy. And it made me think about the environment, again, going back to that, the complexity and the challenge. And when, as an individual, if we're unable to focus at the, self-actualization or self-esteem or that confidence level, to have that ability to understand your strengths and work on them constantly, because we're thinking about our safety and security, then that challenges a leader to then be able to create a psychologically safe environment for their team. So part of it goes back to kind of the leaders, the being able to take care of themselves. Dr. Whelan, you mentioned earlier about, their suffering. Well, you gotta, really focus on that self-care and that ability to have that self-awareness of, hey, I'm creating environments that are less psychologically safe for my people. I'm delegating work less because maybe I'm feeling like the need to command and control or be a little bit more, responsible for these numbers. I'm going to work long hours to make sure things happen. I'm not delegating as much. So there's a number of reasons behind it. To your point, Dr. Wiater, about assessing. So the assessment, yes, is at an organizational level, but it's also, I think, as coaches, we can help at an individual level with leaders to really find out what's going on and how they can, really create a more psychologically safe environment for themselves. In fact, there's a assessment called safety that looks at the different triggers for each individual that can be used as both with a leader and with teams. So there's different ways to get to the root cause, if you will, of some of these, the great insights that you have from the survey.
Yeah. What's interesting is around communication, teams and leaders and teams can think that they're communicating all day long, but what are they communicating? And so many times when I've worked with teams and done the psychological safety assessment, those conversations, the conversations that need to be had aren't being had. And so it's up to the coach to come in then and really look at what is that elephant in the room and how can we bring that out in a safe space, creating psychological safety. And part of that for a coach, especially when you're working with teams, is to be able to model what that looks like. How am I entering the room? How am I allowing all the voices to come into the room where there is not going to be judgment? And it goes back to really having those agreements on the front end. Before you're even doing that work, how are we going to show up as a team? And how am I showing up as a coach? How are we going to communicate? People just think words is communication, right? Just words. We need to see what are those words and how are they landing?
Yeah, so much that communication is often the word used for so many other root cause challenges, right? So always, it's communication problem, really. So let's peel back the onion a little bit and
That's right.
Well, yeah, within that you have expectations, you have feedback. I hear so many people and this isn't even in coaching conversations, but in just those professional conversations that say, I don't know where I stand. I don't really understand the expectation. I'm not getting feedback. And, those types of what we might consider some basic skill, organizational skill in communicating, they're not happening. And again, there's evaluations of the organizations taking a look at what is the communication. So just to your point, my first question when I saw that to ourselves is I said, we need to delve into this a little bit in the next survey when we do that. But taking a look at that. But I thought it really was important that psychological safety was it honestly was the number one in what leaders felt that their team needed, in order to be successful. And so, when you're looking at that component, it'd be good to even ascertain, how does the team feel? Is it safe or not? And yeah, there's a lot of components to that. So.
And then the other one that comes to mind is like strategic or vision. So you think about strategic communications, and part of, I think, what was going on in 21 was it was weird, right? There were some layoffs. Some companies were having some challenges, but it was also the Great Resignation. So there's a little bit of, the layoffs as well as people resigning. But as a communicator, if you're communicating only tactically and not really communicating strategically, where are we going? What's the vision over the next 12, 18 months? How are we going to get there? And perhaps more importantly, how does the work that you do as someone that I'm leading, or that as a leader looks at his teams and organization, how does at an individual level, the work that they do contribute to the vision or the goal? So the purpose of their work aligning with the mission of the organization. So communication, again, is the word, but there's so many offshoots of it, of which strategy and being able to align a person's internal assignment or motivation towards the overall organizational motivation could be a way to address psychological safety, right? Depending on what the root cause of it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I just, in adding to that, I was having a conversation with a leader who runs a coaching firm, actually yesterday. And one of the things that we were talking about, just what you were talking about, Dr. Perdue, this vision, but I would also take it a step further and put it and call it maybe even context. So, helping folks to understand, all the pieces and how they fit together, and how what they're doing, there's the vision, but there's also this context. And we lost a lot of contextual space over the last couple of years when people are just, they don't want to be in a Zoom call, but so they get the meeting done, but you've lost context. You've created in so many ways, and organizations have created kind of silos. You don't have time for some of just that organizational knowledge that gets transferred from this whole thing we call being present. And anyway, so I think it's, and how do you build context? How do you get context to folks? How do you help them see the integration of what they're doing and how it fits into the organization and why it's a necessary component in getting to the vision? So, and completing the mission.
Dr. Perdue, your point around visioning, and Dr. Wiater, your point around context, we can bring that back to strengths and to Clifton strengths. And we know that people who are deep strategic thinkers, maybe they're not expressing that vision. And so it's really important for people who do have that role of casting vision, if they are high intellection, other strategic thinking strengths, that they are bringing that to their people, painting their people into that picture. And Dr. Wiater, around context, not everybody has that strength. I know that you do, and you are wonderful at bringing context to things. But who can bring that context?
Right.
Who on our team can bring that, especially if it's not happening? And these are areas that teams really should be looking at. When we take a look at teams and look at the function of their strengths, how can we be leaning in on people where maybe I don't have that strength, but I know you have that strength, and we partner together to cast that vision and to create that context, to be painting our people into that picture, because that doesn't come easily for everyone.
Yeah. These are good questions. I mean, you've been working a lot with teams, Dr. Whelan. I mean, how are you seeing the effects of some of this that we're talking about roll into those teams that you're working with?
Yeah, as far as strengths?
Strengths, as well as both the visioning, the context, and the challenges that leaders are experiencing.
Yeah. Well, it's really important. I love strengths, and that will always be a piece of an engagement as long as an organization is willing. And I think that opens the door. It opens the eyes and it opens the door for good work to be done within teams. And it's not about just creating, let's just say, a strengths grid for a team, taking them through the assessment, creating excitement around their team grid. We have to do more than that, because we can't just put that in a drawer and forget about it. We have to be reminded of who on the team is operating best in what capacity based on their strengths. And again, how are we partnering to create those goals? If we have a goal and there are tasks to do, who is going to be the one or two people that maybe are going to handle an aspect of that. And so really having an understanding of self first, and then of other awareness as well, is always helpful.
One of the things I'm trying to do right now is to help create a culture or strengths-based culture, right? Where it's not just about, to your point, Dr. Whelan, you want to understand yourself, and you want to, understand how your strengths work together as a team. But I think, Dr. Wiater, you mentioned context, and where there's, high context in the culture, where it's like, we know what to do, how to think, how to act, how to behave. Low context, where it's like, we got to spend 20 minutes in every meeting setting the context, right? But when you just are able to, as a culture, know how to name, claim, and aim your strengths towards a business problem or a business challenge or an initiative, and it's just part of what we do. It's just it's high context. We just already know that we're going to do it. That's, to me, the arc of where having that culture that is not just a strengths-based kind of thinking culture, but where there's strengths-based acting and behaving. And that's where I know for some of the work that I'm trying to do is we're kind of in that arc. So I may be calling on you a little bit more, Dr. Whelan, to help me figure that one out. But since I'm a newbie in strengths and you're not.
Well, we'll have to change that on the website. to add that as soon as you have that blessing.
There you go.
That works.
But all of this fits into, there's been some language around this thing called holding space. People trying to create a space for the thinking and for the doing. So there's been a lot of language. You'll hear somebody say, I'm holding space for that. And I think, first of all, that's good. But it also goes into this thinking, this critical thinking component that there used to be time for, but there hasn't been a time for. So the necessary element of that, leaders kind of using that term, I need to hold space for this, or I'm holding space for this, and then using that space, kind of warding off the pressure a little bit, giving that verbal cue, but then using that space. Because when you're looking too at the organizational memory, which is a part of context, there's in organizations, if people don't have the memory, you can really quickly lose the context and lose the collaboration and lose the integration. So now you're back cycling around to things like recruitment and retention in the organization, because when you have people, let's say you just have one or two people who've been with the organization 30 years, and then the next person who's been there the longest is 10, you've got a big gap of some context that has happened. Why was this decision made? When was it made? How does this happen? What happened in that decision? Not just that we tried to do this before, but what of that failed? Now we're looking at organizational change and development matters. But yeah, there's a lot of pieces with the context. We can go on and on in this.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Again, such an astute observation. I wonder if, and this could be a potential question, but I wonder if you ask a leader what keeps them up at night, is it context? So it's almost like a Johari window where there's some unknown unknowns where things may not even be understood, and it also may not even be understood how big of a deal production wise or being productive and or even making profits or effectiveness and efficiency towards your business goals, that a context or context conversation or an issue would have. So part of the thinking is that maybe there's a need to help raise some of that awareness of that, because I see it as a bigger as a problem as well, both from the workforce perspective, from a generational perspective, and I see it where a lot of newer leaders are being put in positions of mid or upper senior level leadership that may think that context doesn't matter, where there's a little bit more of, I got to focus on more the hard skills, the technical skills and components to do my job, but not so much be as focused on some of the soft skills or the cultural elements that context usually really helps with. So be interested in this, I'm curious as to kind of where that goes.
Yeah. One of the things that's important for teams and that can go to the organizational level is to really take a look, at the historical view. Where have we been and where are we now? And when we do that with teams, because we have people coming in and out of teams, it's important for new team members to understand the makeup of the team and where it has been, why it was created. And so I think, even when you are entering into the onboarding process and helping people understand where the organization has come from, I think that that's important then to keep that going. Because if we, no, people aren't staying with organizations for 30 years. Yes, we do have people who have, and those are the ones who are now retiring out. But for the generations who, move from one organization to another, there's still benefits for them to understand the foundation of that organization and their part in it as they grow.
Sounds like a white paper.
I was thinking the same thing when we started talking. I thought we got to get a transcription of this. So.
I'm sure that'll be edited out. I'm sorry.
There's so much. There's so much work to do. So much work to do.
Yes, there is.
There really is. And so much of it, I think, still goes back to starting with that awareness. What is our awareness as coaches? What is a client awareness? How do we draw that out? How do we make that known to them? Awareness of their situation, awareness of their strengths, awareness of their team, awareness of the organization, and building that, drawing it out and expanding it, past the immediate needs. And of course, you talk about that a lot, Dr. Perdue, with the hierarchy of needs, but that awareness still has to happen so that just the best of who people are can be known and come out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Be known.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of goes to the importance of the leader coach, not just as coach or we tend to think of this box of leadership coach, which is extremely important, but the leadership consultant, to someone to actually be able to assess, to create that awareness, to come to a set of findings and conclusions and recommendations to then provide a path forward towards the achievement of some business and or leadership / cultural organizational vision or set of goals in that roadmap of things, including coaching, including more strengths finder assessments, including potentially emotional intelligence assessments, psychological assessments, things of that nature that are important along the path of creating an organization that has a higher set of well-functioning, higher level competency and skilled leaders, as well as team and organizational high-performing groups. So love the thinking, Dr. Wiater and Dr. Whelan, just because it reminds me of the framework and the importance of a leader consultant in the coaching realm. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that can be missed. It can be missed when we call ourselves coach, those of us who work within and with organizations. There is so much more that we bring because we have been educated and trained up in that way. And not all coaches have been. And I think it's always a buyer beware market when we talk about coaches, and understanding that just because you have a coach or you're calling a coach in, it's important for organizations to be understanding not only the capabilities and what that coach brings, but the broader lens that they can bring to the organization, especially if there is a need. Mm-hmm. There's more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think I'm going to have to add this here, but I think it's one of the reasons why we're going to see the emergence and development of coaching in organizations is because there's more than one type of need within the organization, mm-hmm. and being able to assess that and bring forgive the language, a package, or maybe even a holistic approach, that's probably better, to the organization for what they need is even more critical than ever before.
Yeah. That's what Belem Leaders is about.
I know. Sure is. Yeah. Wow.
Oh. Well, this has been a terrific conversation. I always appreciate both of you coming on, and it goes by really quickly all the time. But just Dr. Perdue, you said, kind of brings things back to top of mind, and it is important for leaders. We're leaders. It's important for us to, to talk about what we're experiencing in and around the workplace, the workforce, in hopes that those who are tuning in can take some nuggets away, can, have a better understanding of both, the client as well as the coach or consultant realm for us. So I appreciate you. I thank you. Yeah.
Welcome.
All right.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.